Yogis, this sequence is meant to be entirely the yoga of breath called pranayama. For today's practice, you might want to have an eye covering. In the studio, we have little eye coverings that are like pillowcases that have been filled with rice or flaxseed, and they're meant to rest on the eye sockets when the eyes are closed. In addition to that, there's a soft foam chip block, and you can substitute any, let's say, hardcover book of any dimension. In addition to that, there are 3 blankets. I know that blankets are often in short supply nowadays. People use duvets more than blankets, but if you've got blankets, they'll be very, very useful for you. I'll show you how to fold them later. Some of us have something called a pranayama bolster, and it's smaller than a standard bolster. It's narrower, for example, and it is about the depth of 2 folded blankets. So this means that blanket folding is not necessary. One can quickly set up the pranayama bolster. But I'm going to use blankets today because most people use blankets. So I'm just showing the pranayama bolster in case that's something that you have at home, or perhaps something that you aspire to get. Yoga is a process of coming home to ourselves. Usually it's schooling that separates children from their bodies. The school furniture is not appropriate. They're meant to sit for long hours, and the shape of the furniture doesn't support the lumbar spine. And so by the time a child has completed 12 years, their spine muscles are generally not strong enough to keep the spine upright. You'll see stooping like this, where the front body is collapsing against the heart and the lungs. And if you add another 4 years or even longer at university, it's even more difficult to sit upright. What happens when we separate from the body, when we exist only in our heads, as René Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am," neglecting that we are in fact the entire body. When we come home to the body, we come home to the self. And yoga is a means for occupying the self. In today's beginning practice, we're drawing on the teachings of Gita Iyengar, who visited Germany in 2009, and there she taught a group of teachers. They would have come from all over Europe to access her teachings. And she started her pranayama first session with only a blanket for the head. The blanket, in general, is not folded thickly, unless there is an extended curvature in the upper back, a kyphotic curve of the upper thoracic. The blanket is meant to support the head and the neck, so that the neck can relax, the head can relax. Of the senses, most are in the head. The sense of seeing, of hearing, of tasting, of smelling. Touching, of course, is the work of the skin of the entire body. But the head needs to rest in order that the senses can rest quietly inward. To come into this initial part of the practice, we sit in the middle of the mat like this and test to see if when we stretch the legs out, the foot remains on the mat. We want to avoid something like this, where the foot extends off the mat and is feeling a different surface texture. It's distracting. And so we sit in the center of the mat. We calculate that we can take ourselves onto the elbows, and from here it's the hands that stretch the top of the buttock away. Top of the buttock is going this way. And the area of the spine just above the lumbar spine is stretching that way. So I'm actively stretching the lumbar spine toward the head as the top of the body extends toward the heels. And then I test to see, is my spine aligned
So I have to look to see if the legs have drifted off in one direction and the spine has gone in another. So I lift my head and look, and I can see the pelvis has drifted a little to the left. So I ever so slightly move it to the right, and then vigorously extend the legs one by one like that. The legs are joined in this shape of Supta Konasana, and then they release by allowing the inner thighs to turn out. You can see how the little toe side of the foot is dropping toward the floor. These are the legs relaxed. And then I feel for the lumbar spine. You can see I'm taking one hand underneath my body to feel if the lumbar spine is overarching away from the floor. And it is quite deeply arched. So I come up again on my elbows. And I stretch again the lumbar spine. And I feel now that that arch is a normal arch. It's not overly arched away from the floor. Because I've lengthened the lumbar spine, the abdomen can rest into the body. It's not lifting up toward the ceiling and higher than the chest. It's lower than the chest. The chest is lifted, the heart is lifted more than the frontal brain. Then we work with the arms. I'm going to set this soft foam block on the abdomen, just as a reminder to the abdomen to stay quiet, not to lift the foam block as I breathe in. I'm stretching the arms wide and slightly lifting the chest and expanding the arms from the shoulder blades and drawing the shoulder blades down the upper back. And then I settle the shoulder blades on the mat, I settle the elbows and settle the forearms. From here, the glasses could be removed, and then I sense the tilt of the skull. At the moment, it feels as if the tilt of the skull is going toward the hairline. So that tells me the back neck is slightly compacted. I take my thumbs and tilt the skull again, so that I have a slight incline from forehead to nose to chin to chest, and from there I can close the eyes. This is the first stage of the first principles of yoga, how to place the body in such a way that the abdomen is softly dropping into the body, that the chest is elevated, and that the skull is slightly tilted. Then the breath can begin. As we start this breathing practice, we exhale completely, emptying ourselves completely. And then we take a normal inhalation. In general, that inhalation is coming into the floating ribs, the area of the lowest most ribs in the rib cage. We can feel those low ribs softly expanding laterally or out to the sides. We feel now, where is the breath touching inside the chest wall, and where is it not touching? Does it touch the inner chest walls on both sides? Or are there places where the breath is not irrigating or touching the inner chest wall? If that's true, if there are places where the breath is not circulating, can you invite the breath to come there? Just normal breathing. And then, can you feel the breath moving in the back of the rib cage? Are there sensations there that feel like perhaps the flutter of breath in the back of the lungs? And if that's the case, can you tell where the breath is touching in the back of the lungs
and where it's not touching. Of course, the back of the lungs are not moving as freely as the sides and front of the lungs because the back of the lungs are compressed by the floor beneath you. But even so, you'll feel a slight movement in the rib cage. And now, can you direct the breath from the back of the rib cage towards the front of the rib cage? Let the arms go wide again. And concentrate so that your focus can direct the breath from back body to front body. It requires your absolute attention to do this. If your mind wavers, you lose track of the connection of body, mind, and breath. And now, having learned to place yourself correctly on the mat, having identified the side rib movement, the front rib movement, and the back of the lungs receiving the breath, let the hands come to rest lightly on the front body. Remind yourself that the abdomen drops into the body. It's quiet and deep. It's not lifting with the breath and descending with the breath. Remind yourself that the chest is higher than the abdomen, and the chest is supported sufficiently from the rib cage in the back body that it's higher than the frontal brain, which is resting back. Once you remind yourself of those ways of placing yourself, bend your knees one by one, shift your body a little to the left and turning onto your right side, press your hands down, look down, and come up slowly. And now, folding the blankets. To fold the blankets for pranayama, hold the corners of the blankets like this and just shake them out so that any lumps and creases are easily removed. And then set the selvage edge down. I see immediately that it's uneven, and so I move it to evenness and fold it once and then once again. And then smooth the blankets. This bulky selvage edge goes toward the head. And the smooth edge is placed toward the area that the back body will touch. The second blanket is added. Again, we fold the blanket corner to corner, edge to edge, take the corners of the blanket, shake it out like that, and then fold it once and again. This way of folding the blanket is called a trifold, or sometimes it's been called an accordion fold. You can see that there are two sides of the blanket which are rounded edged. Here as well, two sides that are rounded edged. That means that this side has a selvage edge. And I want to place this side with the selvage edge on this side with the rounded edges so that the blankets are balanced relative to the floor, like that. You can see that the top blanket is placed just a little bit further in than the bottom blanket. There's a little shelf here. The third blanket is the cushion for the head and for the neck, and it goes here. Again, I'm checking to see that the blankets are flat and evenly placed. We have the eye rests here, and I like to have quite a bit of weight on the eyelids, so I've got two eye rests. If you don't have an eye rest at home, that's okay. You can use a face cloth and just fold a face cloth, something light and soft over the eye sockets, because the eyelids are very sensitive skin. So I have my eye rest close to hand. And now how do we place ourselves on our blankets? We sit in front of the blankets, like this, and feel for the top edge of the blankets. Here, I'm feeling with my hands the lowest ribs in the back body, and I'm placing them on the top blanket so that the bottom blanket is supporting the sacrum. And I'm checking to see, does my heel stay on the blanket? Yes, it does. And now I come back right the way along the center of the bolster, and I adjust the cushion blanket so that it comes to touch the top of the shoulders like that, but it doesn't come under the shoulders. So now it can drop away. We tilt the skull with the thumbs like that, so we have that forehead to nose, to chin, to chest tilt. And now the lumbar spine is moving this way, but the top of the buttock has to go that way. So we use our hands. We stretch, and this is a strong movement. I'm pulling, stretching the top of the buttock in that direction. So the lumbar spine can rest, so the abdomen can rest. I want to spend a moment and talk about this area just below the navel. Here's the navel. I'm pointing to it with one finger. But this area just below the navel, in Sanskrit is called the Hrda, H-R-D-A. It refers to what we might in English call the solar plexus. And it's the area from which, in the body, all energy radiates or moves away from this central place. We'll keep that in mind as we're practicing our pranayama. Again, we stretch the legs vigorously away so that they can rest. We let the thighs turn out from inside to outside. Little toe side of the foot is releasing toward the floor. Momentarily, I lift the head to see if the legs have drifted, and sure enough, the left leg has drifted a little, so I bring it back. The inner thighs are not touching. They're close to each other, but they're free of each other as well. Again, skull is tilting. There's a very slight coil of the blanket at the neck, just so the neck can feel the touch of the blanket and relax. And then the arms expand from the shoulder blades. Again, a vigorous stretch, and the elbows drop into the body. At this point, you can cover the eye sockets. I like to separate the material in the eye rest, so there's an equal amount of material on each one, and just place it over the eye sockets and extend the arms like this. And now, Shavasana. Shavasana meaning releasing the sense organs into the body. Of course, eyes are meant for looking, but they take us outward. And when we close the eyes and cover them, there's no ambient light at all, just the darkness. And in that darkness, the eyes can relax and drop away from the eyelids toward the back of the sockets. Similarly, the ears relax. The openings to the ears soften. The skin all around the ears becomes quiet. The skin over the temples also softens. The nasal passages relax. The linings to the nostrils release and relax. The bridge of the nose relaxes. And the touch of lip to lip is very light, almost imperceptible. The lower jaw drops toward the chest as it releases at the mandible joint. The tongue rests into the lower jaw. We sense any areas of the body that might be holding tension, and we invite that tension to leave with an exhalation.
until the body becomes still, the mind is alert, and we begin our pranayama practice with a complete exhalation, and then a slow, soft, lengthened inhalation. The inhalation causes the breath diaphragm to drop down a little, creating a vacuum in the chest that allows the lungs to fill. As we breathe out, the diaphragm lifts, releasing the spent breath. And so you'll feel this plunging downward of the breath diaphragm on the incoming breath, and this gentle release upward of the breath diaphragm on the exhale. Just tune into that for a moment. Notice as well that as the breath spreads into the low ribs, it also starts to rise. Prana is the life force. Ayama means to spread. The breath is spreading and lifting. Up to what level does it lift? Can you tell which rib is the lip of the breath? And now, let's add to our slow, soft, lengthened incoming breath a slow, soft, lengthened outgoing breath. If you notice that you're introducing strain in the throat, or the facial muscles, or the eyes, you might be taking just a little bit too long to breathe in or out. So back up a little. Until you find the rhythm of incoming and outflowing breaths is easy, and there is no strain. You can always put 1 or 2 or more normal breaths between your lengthened incoming and outgoing breaths. These are called recovery breaths. In previous sequences, we've practiced a 4-count inhalation, a 4-count exhalation, and we've introduced holding the breath after the inhalation and after the exhalation. That's a very relaxing sequence. If breathing in to 4 counts, which means 4 seconds, is too much, try 3. And then hold for 1 breath, and try 3 outgoing breath exhalations. And hold that exhalation out for 1 breath. And then you can take 2 or 3 normal breaths between each of your pranayama breaths. The big idea here is to create a rhythm of incoming breath, pausing, outgoing breath, pausing, and 1 or 2 or 3 recovery breaths. You can spend 2 or 3 minutes setting your timer if you wish to remind yourself in this rhythmic breathing. And then let the hands come to rest somewhere on the front body. Bend the knees one by one, set the feet down on the mat, Your eye rests are going to tip off when you come onto your side body, so just be prepared for that. And then turn onto your side, rest your head on your upper arm, and draw your knees up to your chest like this. And from here, press the top hand down to the floor, look down, and then the secondary hand comes down and you walk the hands back towards you. But try to stay very quiet inside as you change position so that you don't disturb the nervous system, which we're working on in pranayama. I'm going to stand now because I want you to see the basis for Viloma breathing. Viloma means going against the current or going against the grain. Here, I'm standing with the feet slightly separated for balance. When we take one inhalation, we're going to break it into 3 separate portions. Like this. Here's the first portion, the second portion, the third portion. And the exhalation is a slow, soft, extended exhalation like that. When I take the first portion and my arms are here, I'm introducing the breath into the low side ribs. I pause. Now I take the next portion. I'm bringing the breath into the mid-ribs, just below the breast, when I take my arms to the side, and I pause. Here's the final portion. When the arms are lifted, I'm raising the breath toward the throat, but I'm not aiming for the throat, just toward the clavicles or collarbones here. This is one breath, 3 portions. Breathing in, side ribs, pause. Second portion, mid-ribs, pause. Final portion of the same inhalation, just under the collarbones, pause. Turn the arms like this and extend a long, slow, soft exhalation like that. Let's do that again without words, but focusing and interrupting the breath 3 times. Now we're going to take it back to our pranayama blankets. Again, as we did previously, we sit in the middle of the mat. Check to see if the extended leg stays on the mat. It does. Come on to the lowest portion of the blanket with the sacrum and the upper portion of the blanket with the floating ribs, and then stretch the lumbar spine along the blanket, the thoracic spine along the blanket. Take the blanket in hand, turn it just a little for the neck. Check to see that the head is tilting. Push the top of the buttock away from the blankets, and then extend the legs one by one, and let the legs turn out like this. And now I look to see, and the legs now are aligned with the spine. I'm tilting the scalp from forehead to chin to chest, extending the arms and lifting the chest so that the heart is elevated, the brain is resting back, and the belly is soft and deep. It's uninvolved in the breath. The eyes close and the eye rests come onto the eyelids. I start with a complete exhalation, and then one portion of this breath comes here, and I pause. The second portion comes here,
and I pause.
The final portion comes here.
And I pause, and then a long, slow, soft exhalation.
Throughout the exhalations, the chest does not collapse or fall into the body. It remains lifted by means of the bolster. The head remains resting back, and the abdomen stays quiet in the body. You can follow your viloma or interrupted inhalations with 1 or 2 or 3 normal breaths, recovery breaths. Let's do another viloma breath. Start with an exhalation. First portion, here. Pause. Second portion, here. Pause. Final portion here. Pause. Keeping the chest lifted, a complete exhalation.
After having done, let's say, 4 or 5 rounds of interrupted inhalations, inhale, wait, inhale, wait, inhale, wait, exhale, let's move to a seated posture. We can take our blankets as our sitting platform and fold them to support us as we sit. If you have foam blocks at home, you could always use your foam blocks as well. And we're going to place these blankets against the wall. Now the wall is a very good teacher, and the bolster that I'm showing is a good support for the spine at the wall. If you lack a bolster, but you have something firm in this shape that you could place at the back of your blankets, it would be helpful. It's not essential, but it could be helpful to you to keep the spine upright. Sit toward the wall like this. I'm holding the bolster in my hands so that I can feel the spine along the bolster. And just as we did laying down, I'm lengthening the lumbar spine upward and taking the sacrum back to the wall on both sides. Crossing the shins. I'm choosing to take the left foot in and the right leg is furthest away from me. If in releasing the thighs there's a strain in the groins, then you'd be well advised to support the thighs so that you can relax and release the groins. Foam blocks we use in the studio. You might have something handy at home that you could place here, like your pillows from your bed, that would support the outer thighs. Just be sure that there's no strain in this crease at the top of the legs, because it will distract you. I'm using my hands to draw the buttocks flesh back. I'm feeling the bolster, and the spine is tracking right the way along the bolster, and then the glasses come off. In this portion of our sequence, we're going to allow the head to release toward the heart. This is called the Jalandhara Bandha, or chin lock. A lock sounds very serious, and in fact, this is a kind of seal of the breath into the upper chest. It protects the brain and the senses in the skull from overexerting the breath, let's say. So I rest the hands on the thighs like this, and then let the head just slide forward a little and let the chin release toward the chest like this. The chest, for its part, has to lift toward the chin. So the skin and flesh and muscles over the bones of the chest lift up. The chin descends. There is no strain to lift the chest. We can only do what the body permits today. We're not forcing the head down and causing the throat to strain. The throat is soft and available to breath. Just this. The eyes close. I take my hands now to the back of my blankets and I press the arms down and lift the chest again. And see, when I take the hands to the thighs, can I maintain this lift? And even as I breathe out, can I maintain the lift of the spine, the side ribs, and the chest? Just watching for that. Does the chest drop on the exhalation? Certainly through the first portion of the exhalation, the chest is lifted. The lungs are draining. And then at the last split seconds of the exhalation, there's a little drop of the chest. Every time I feel that drop, I again take the hands to the back of the blankets, lift the side ribs, lift the chest, relax the face. Let the chin release downward, and then release the hands. Just normal breathing here. We're learning to sit upright. We're learning to lift and spread the muscles of the chest. We're learning to release the chin and the face toward the heart. In a sense, the intellect is releasing toward the heart. The cellular activity of the brain is releasing toward the heart. Just sitting, just breathing. And focusing on what the body is doing through the inhalations and exhalations. And then slowly lifting the head to eye level. The eyes softly open, just glancing down in front of us. And then the eyes come to eye level. And we draw our palms together and bring them straight into the heart region. This is a gesture of acknowledgement and respect for the teachings, for the teachers, and for Shane Murphy, who has filmed these sequences.